I decided to find out just how profitable running 8.1 solo dungeons is. We are going to be leveling up from 0 to 100 mastery in crossbows with one of the fastest clearing builds. We'll be opening many epic chests and showcasing a full run leading up to the coveted legendary chest. Can we turn a profit? Let's find out. To start off, we begin in Thetford by gearing up. We will be using a 4.2 crossbow at first since we have 0 mastery and is the only one we can use. However, we will be upgrading to a 5.2 and then a 6.2 crossbow as soon as we can. We are also using a transport set. More details on the build and all the items we use at the end of the video. We will be running all our maps starting from a hideout. This has two advantages. First off, we receive the hideout fame buff. But secondly and most importantly, we have a lower chance of being spotted when we go inside a dungeon and less chance of being ganked. If you do not have access to a guild or a hideout, then I recommend doing this from the Black Zone rests, like Arthur's Rest or Morgana's Rest. Also, to be safe and efficient, I recommend using a fast mount like a Swiftclaw, Direwolf, Panther, or something similar. This will greatly reduce the time it takes for you to get from dungeon to dungeon, and increase your overall fame and silver per hour. Also, if you want to be extra safe, you can wait 90 seconds after you enter a dungeon to make sure no one follows you in and tries to gank you. When you are running from dungeon to dungeon, you can use a transport set to be even safer. The main reason why I wanted to do this activity is because I wanted to level up crossbows, and the light crossbow is one of the best solo dungeon clearing weapons in the game by far. In general, if you want to fame up a weapon, farming mobs in the open world or in the roads of Avalon is a much better option. However, due to the speed of clearing that the crossbow has, solo dungeons are also viable for this build. The cost of an 8.1 map is 150,000 silver. This is quite expensive, however, as you can see in the background highlights, almost all end chests are at least a break even. This, combined with the silver dropped by the mobs, makes sure you make a profit on almost every dungeon. We will have a full breakdown of all the loot received towards the end of the video. If not done from one of the portal cities, this activity is incredibly safe. I ran a total of 38 solo dungeons and wasn't ganked once. Whenever you open a dungeon map, it can appear either in the zone you are currently in or in any of the adjacent zones. If I open a map and it takes me outside of the zone that my hideout is in, I prefer to walk back to the hideout zone after completing the map before opening another one so that it does not lead to me drifting further and further away from my hideout zone. Even though I'm focusing on doing only solo dungeons, my main goal is to fame farm, so when the opportunity arises and I see a spiky boss in the open world, I will take it. During the time it took me to get from 0 to 100 masteries in crossbows, I found about 5 spiky mobs in the open world. This led to me getting about 2 million fame outside of the dungeons. As I was leaving a dungeon, I saw a purple core that was not being claimed by anyone. Since I was in the zone with our hideout, I decided to carry it home. This was an unintended benefit of having a transport set on myself at all times. Note that if you do this, you should notify your guild members to come outside of the hideout so that they also receive the might reward. In this case, there was no one online inside the hideout. In most of the end chests you can expect to find about 100,000 silver. However, sometimes you get a little bit more lucky and you get an item that is worth a lot more. Here we managed to get an Albion keep that is worth 800,000 silver. You might have noticed me carrying a mercenary jacket and a nature staff in my inventory during these clips. This is because there might be some bosses that you cannot clear using the light crossbow build. For example, with this boss I had a lot of trouble, so I decided to just switch to the nature staff. Thank you for the overwhelming support on the past videos. If you're enjoying this content and would like to see more, please consider subscribing to the channel. And I hope you enjoyed the rest of the video. Here are some of the final highlights before we get into the full run. After we showcase the final dungeon, we'll have a rundown of all the loot and fame we got throughout these solo dungeons, and a conclusion if they're worth to do or not. Here is a complete rundown of the build we're using. The weapon is the light crossbow, which is one of the fastest clearing weapons for solo dungeons in the game. Using the well-prepared passive makes it so that the Q ability resets after every 4 spells we cast. We are also using full cloth armor since that gives us the most damage. Also, the Avalonian hood has a laser ability that gives us even more damage, and our boots have a buff that gives us more damage when we use them. The Caerleon cape allows us to use our Q more often, and the crypt candle gives us more overall damage. Poison potions are used as often as we can because that gives us a faster clear speed, and our food could be an Avalonian beef stew for more regen, however that is expensive. In this clip I have a normal beef stew and that works just fine, since we have a regen ability on our cultist robe. Besides that, it is important to have a fast mount. We also have a mercenary jacket and a nature staff in our inventory in case we need to kill a tough boss. The other items in the inventory are a transport set which we can use when we run from dungeon to dungeon, alongside with invisibility potions for even more safety. All in all, you should have at least 1300 IP to be able to efficiently clear those dungeons, although going even higher is recommended for even faster clear speeds. The build can be quite expensive, however the activity is very safe, so it should be very hard to get ganked. Starting off the run, for added safety we should always wait for 90 seconds at the beginning of the dungeon. This makes it so that the entrance locks and no one else can enter after you. This is not strictly necessary and you can skip this step if you want to do the dungeons faster, however I quite enjoy the breaks between the dungeons that I can take in those 90 seconds. As we run through the dungeon, we try to clear the mobs as quickly as possible and always keep on the move. We should use our boots whenever we can to cover distances, alongside with our W ability, which gives us movement speed when we hit an enemy with it. As I'm clearing the mobs, I try to always pay attention to my well-prepared stacks. As soon as the number hits 4, my Q ability is instantly refreshed. So my goal is to get to number 3, and then I can Q and Q immediately afterwards again. Note that any ability makes this counter go up, so I try to use my chest ability, my Avalonian hood and my boots to get closer to 4 as fast as I can. The cultist robe should be used as often as possible between pulls to regen back health. This is why an Avalonian beef stew is highly recommended, because it greatly helps increase your health regen between those pulls. This makes it so you have to use the cultist robe much less often, which speeds up your clears. You should always try to gather mobs up so that you can hit multiple at once. During this run I had a connection issue with my internet and I disconnected. This is also an additional benefit of this activity. If you get disconnected, nothing happens, you can just log back in later and you'll be in the same dungeon. The dungeon does close after some time, but if you log back in, you'll just be thrown back into the overworld and you'll be safe.
In life, you torture us. In death, you feed them.
During all the solo dungeons that I did, this was the only one that had a legendary chest, which you can see by the special ending the dungeon has.
Takers be
Nature awaken! I see you. Nature awaken!
takers be gone.
I see you. Element rise!
I see you.
Dust to dust.
Takers be gone.
I was extremely hyped to find this legendary chest. Previously, the best chest that I got from these solo dungeons was a 1 million loot from an epic purple chest. Sadly, SBI was not on my side today and I was quite disappointed with the loot I received. On my immediate next run I got a blue chest that had more loot than that one. This is the last dungeon we're doing. In total I did 35 8.1 dungeons and 3 tier 8 dungeons. This is because I ran out of 8.1 maps. Right here I ran even out of tier 8 maps, so I decided to just use learning points to get the final mastery level. That is 240,000 fame that we do not have to farm anymore. It takes 14.6 million fame to get from 0 to 100 masteries. We skipped about 2 million fame using open world mobs and learning points, so we'll deduct that from the total. This means we got about 12.5 million fame from running solo dungeons. On average we got about 320,000 fame from one solo dungeon. I could do about 4 solo dungeons in 1 hour, so that means we got about 1.2 million fame per hour, which is decent. In the 3 stash tabs that I used to track the loot, I already had 5.8 million in silver before I started doing the solo dungeons. Counting up the loot I have in the 2nd, 3rd and 4th stash tabs, we reach a total of 19.5 million silver worth of items. This means we had a profit of about 13.7 million silver. When running solo dungeons, you also receive silver from the mob drops. However, the silver gained there and the repair costs almost cancel each other out, so it's not worth mentioning. This means we got an average of 360,000 silver for every chest we did in a solo dungeon. We have to remember that each dungeon costs 150,000 silver, so we have to deduct that from our total. Taking that into account, we are left with about 8 million silver of pure profit. This is better than I expected, and the fame per hour is also decent, so I think overall this activity is pretty good to do if you have high IP and you are using high tier maps. Thanks for watching this video, and thanks everyone for the overwhelming support over the past few videos. We managed to pass 1000 subscribers, which is awesome. I'm excited to be creating more content like this, and I'll see you in the next video.